Hello, is anybody there? Yes. Hello. Awesome. We'll leave it a few minutes to let a few people sort of get in. If there's any questions, there's a questions tab. That's probably easier. I'll try not to stop too much throughout the workshop because then it just gets a bit stop-start, doesn't it? So I'll try and batch questions a bit more. Yeah, the video is will be available for members after on Makerpad. So it'll take some. I mean, we got some editing to do and stuff, but yeah, it should be. Also, I think you get the replay emailed. Not sure. Just checking I got all my things up and ready. Who have we got in here? Some familiar people. All right, well, I'm just going to get started because it was supposed to start at 4. Yeah, so today we're going to be building a membership website like what Makerpad is. I'm not going to build it from scratch. So this is sort of assuming that you've already created your Webflow site with MemberStack integrated. So that's the assumption, is that you have your Webflow site set up, your MemberStack integration set up, and like your own plans with the login sign-up pages. The reason I didn't do it now because you can build your Webflow site however you want. There's tons of courses, tutorials out there, and on Makerpad that you can use to sort of help guide you through those. MemberStack have really good tutorials too, so they're the best place to go and learn how to integrate MemberStack on your Webflow site. So for this workshop, we're just going to assume that you have your site set up and MemberStack is integrated. Just going to move on to a separate screen. Okay. Let me share my screen. Oops, that's not it. So I've just downloaded Catalina. I've got to let some permissions. Okay, I think that's right. Can you see my screen, my Webflow screen? I'm just going to set up a separate recording just in case this one doesn't work, because I'm worried about that. Let's do a new. Oh, fucking hell. Sorry about this. I'm just trying to do it just because I upgraded and I think it might not record, which would be very annoying. Okay. I think we are recording. Sorry about this, just trying to make sure. How do I know if it's recording? Don't even know how on QuickTime I can see if this is actually recording. Okay, so I am. Right. Okay, right, sorry. Just a quick question. How long do you expect it to last? It should be less than an hour, definitely. So we will start with how to create profiles on a membership site. So the stack that I use is Webflow, Airtable, Zapier, and MemberStack. And for sort of creating your profiles, I'm using Makerpad as the actual example, so you'll be able to see how we build it too. So we have our collection, CMS collection called users. So this will be sort of the slug of what that user page will be. So it's /user/Ben Tossell, for example. You can change this to whatever you want. You can have it profiles, members, whatever you want. And then within this CMS collection, you want to set up the right fields. So we've got things like the name, the bio, profile picture, which is an image, Twitter URL, email, all that sort of stuff. There's a ton here which isn't relevant, but this is the sort of setup that you'll be requiring. And with those CMS items, you want these to be the same as your forms and fields in MemberStack. So here you'll see in the sign up, you can add custom fields. So you want to add these to make sure they sort of line up with your CMS collection items. And in these, you can hide them from the profile. So when you're actually signed in, for example, you won't see any here in like the actual account because they're all hidden. So that's what you're going to want. You're going to want to have the same things that you want to pass through your profile CMS collection to MemberStack. So bio, location, Twitter, website, etc. The same is true for your Airtable. So you want to have a profile table in Airtable, which has the bio, profile picture, etc., etc., etc. The one thing I always mention, or should mention, is for the first field, for the first column, you should have the ID, which is the formula ID, formula type, which has record_ID close brackets. This generates basically a unique record ID that helps you when you're doing your zaps and automations. It helps you like get Airtable to talk to Airtable and look up things and reference things, and you'll see it a bunch when we go through some of the examples. But that's pretty important for Airtable. But otherwise, yeah, make sure everything's sort of lined up with the same headings and everything else to make it easier. And first, we're going to create our profile. So the trigger that we use for this is when you get a new member. So when you get a new member in MemberStack, that just comes through, and then that will create a record in your profiles tab. So that creates a record here that just pulls in what that person did, which was like their name, email, basically. So you're able to pull in the profile full name and map that to the name field in Airtable, and then the email, and then also you get generated a MemberStack ID for the actual person. So I put that in there as well. And then there's obviously you'll see all these fields are in our Airtable, but they're not relevant for now. And once you've done that, the next step is create a live item in Webflow. So you've got to make sure you're connected to your site, the collection that you've set up with those fields, and type in and map up the email, the name, and then we don't want it as archive, we don't want it as draft. And then you've got to re-pull that data back into Airtable. So this is when you create a live item in Webflow, it generates an item ID, and the item ID is the specific thing that like tells Webflow this is the person or this is the thing that this relates to. So I always like to have this in Airtable and anywhere, because when you pull it through with some of the things we'll do a bit later on, that is like a really easy way to link everything together. It's basically essential. So we update the record. You look at the profile table, you look at the record, and you basically, this is the search. So use a custom value and then pull in that item, that record ID that we just talked about. You put in this from our step 2, which is where you created that record. You can pull in the ID to find that exact record, essentially. And that then will go, and you can add the Webflow ID, so that comes from that 3rd step, the creating the live item. And then for some reason I've got the member stack ID in here again, which you won't need. But this basically means that in all 3 steps, you've got your member stack set up. Your CMS item has the name, email, and then it has updated that in your Airtable here, and then you update this Airtable with that item ID as well. Just missed the formula for displaying record ID in Airtable. That is, I'll just quickly, it's basically record. Ooh, where am I? Whoa. Record underscore ID, curly brackets. Let's not change that. Okay, so now is onto the edit profiles. So you'll see on here, just give me a sec. Yeah, so we have an edit profile page, which just has a form block on Webflow. And what you want to try and, form block. And what you want to do is have the different like text fields map to all the things that you want in your profile. So essentially the location, we haven't got the profile picture, the short bio, everything else that we didn't get in the initial stage of name, email, essentially. And then, so the way you do that, the way we do that anyway, because there is a way in MemberStack to do, you sort of set an attribute to update MemberStack with this data, which is ms-update. But I don't actually do it that way. You have all these different types of fields that you want people to fill in. And if you see mine, for example, it pulls in what my data is sort of holding about me. And the way you do that is having these attributes. So these are the names of those fields: full name, profile link. So you have MS field is what this field will map to update that field. MS data is displaying that data. So when you first do your edit profile, obviously there will be no data in it. But if you set up these both attributes on each of them, so you'll see this is MS field website, this is MS field Twitter, MS data Twitter. So then it will always display the thing back to your site. So that's just like a good thing, so people know that there's stuff in their profile. The other thing that we do in this form is include a HTML embed. And what this is there's an input, and you get this from, I think MemberStack can show you what you can input here. If not, it's just super simple. it's like the input is a hidden input that just gets passed through and gets pulled through. The data gets pulled through with the form submission. So then you'll be able to use it in your Zapier triggers and things. So here we've got our input type hidden, which is our member stack ID. So that will pull through our member stack ID if we ever need it. You'll notice in our edit profile, we don't have our email because we don't want people to change it on this. I think that's like a limitation in member stack. So you have the input MS data email, data name is the email, etc., etc. So this is a hidden field through the HTML embed, essentially. So this then, if I find the right one, if you go to edit profile, the actual the steps, you'll see that form submission, editing profile. So when someone submits this form, it pulls that through. That's the trigger. So editing profile. Then you want that to find that profile. You can search it by email because that email will get pulled through. So that email gets pulled through in the data ID email. So as you just saw, that HTML embed pulls that email through, even though it doesn't show on the form. So those things are really key to learn and understand, because then you can do a lot of other things with those. So you search by email field in this profile table. And then once you've done that, you want to update this record. So you want to update it, and you want to map all the fields from that initial form to all the right fields here. So the profile picture, etc. So all of those, the record will be that record ID that we talked about here. And that comes through when you found the record in Airtable. So that should be straightforward. You update that record, pull all the things through, all the things that you would want to update. Just make sure everything is mapped. Yeah, I'll post the embed codes near the end. So everything you want mapped, you make sure you map it, because even if it's not in your form submission, some people might include something one day but updating something different another day. So you want to make sure they're all linked. And then this is where I do my update member and member stack. So maybe I could leave this step out if I did the way that member stack tell you how to do it. But I update this member and member stack again. I just map all the fields to the right custom fields here. And then I update that live item in Webflow. So that pulls all of that data then. It looks at the users collection. It looks at which item I'm trying to change. So it pulls that Webflow ID that we populated earlier here. And this, you'll see different ones on here because this is all my testing stuff. So there might be different numbers here. But this is the Webflow ID. You use that so it knows, right, I'm looking for this exact item. And then you map all the things here to then pull everything through and update that live item. So then on their profile, it should show all the updated stuff. And then in that edit profile page, it should also have the data fields that you've just done. So that's our editing of a profile. So you've got your membership site, creating profiles, editing profiles, super simple, starting off, you've got profiles essentially on your site. The next part is posting to your profile. So I'm going to just close these before I get confused. So when you're posting things to a profile, posting things to a Webflow membership site, so Chris has asked a good question, which is, what's the driver behind the decision to do it in a Webflow native form versus it being handled in the member stack overlay? It allows me to pull this through, style it however I want, pull it through into Airtable, most importantly. And it just doesn't translate well when I'm trying to do the more complicated stuff, which we're going on to now. So that it's like a consistent design thing and putting everything through. But I mean, I could be wrong. There could be things that actually that makes it simpler, but this is how we do it. I think I made the right choice for a particular reason with some of that design stuff and the complicated stuff. So when you're posting to your profile, again, you're going to need to look at the same sort of setups. You need to check that. You need to check that you have a post collection. We call it posts. You can call it whatever you want. And for this one, we've made the slug like just a P. I think Product Hunt did that as well, actually. So that's probably where I got it from. And then again, collection fields, the name, tagline, body image, URL, video link. And we have a text field here called the text item ID, which you'll see what that's used for shortly. So then we also have a reference field here, just a single reference field, which we say sort of who. You can put author or user, whatever you want, and just connect that to the user's CMS collection. So it's essentially saying, right, from this post, who is the person that this post belongs to, or who did this post, and that's what we'll pull through shortly. So then we've got the Airtable posts table. Again, we've got the record ID, the name, tagline, body, image, URL, video, etc. This tag, you don't need to worry about this tag thing here. We basically use it because we have posts as a general collection item, and we have tutorials, projects, questions, articles, like multiple things within that post type. So this is just saying this post type is a project, someone's showing off their project. And you'll notice the reference field here, which is what we talked about before. And then we've got this, which is a lookup, which just looks at this reference and then finds the Webflow ID of that reference. So it looks up the reference here and then looks up this and then pulls that in, basically. Super simple, but allows us to have this in this exact table. So posting projects, posting posts, whatever you want to call it, is the sort of same setup, and I mean it's often the same setup. So once you learn a few of these things once and you can replicate them, it's very easy to sort of see how they can be used in different ways for more advanced looking things, but essentially the same layout and flow is done the same way. So again, to post something, there's a form. It's got all the same fields: name, tagline, URL. And it's also got, again, a HTML embed that pulls through. This is our tag type, so we don't need to worry about that. This is also the, maybe I'll post this now. This is the email tag that gets pulled through, the email data that gets pulled through. So I'll put that in here for you, Chris. And I don't think actually a lot of those parameters don't need to be in there, but I think I copied that from somewhere and then realized you can do it really simply like this one. So yeah, it's the same thing. You have a form submission. So when someone posts something, you want to set up this, which is your form submission in Webflow as a trigger. When that is submitted, you need to find the records. You need to find who the person was who posted it. So we do this same thing again, search by the field email, and then that email got pulled through again as the search value. So look for that. We've got a filter here, which you don't need. It's just sort of saying if someone managed to get through to that page and post something, but they didn't have an email pulled through because they weren't a pro member, they didn't have a member stack email entry, then don't run this app. but that shouldn't be a problem because it's all closed off anyway. And then this goes create a record in Airtable. So we want to go to our projects table. So this goes here and essentially just creates this line. Tagline, blah, 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 the normal stuff. And then the reference, again, it pulls in that reference from this one, finding that record. It's able to pull out that record ID. And that's what we need for that step. Then you create the live item in Webflow. You can probably see a pattern here of how you do Zapier, Airtable, and Webflow together. You want to put this in the collections, in the posts collections, the posts collection, sorry. So here, again, we're putting that in here that we talked about. You map over the tagline, body, etc., etc. And then, not that, the name, sorry, the one to look for here is the who. So where we've got who in the Webflow reference field, remember that collection is the user collection. Because we have that lookup that looks up the person's Webflow ID from their reference, that can then just pull that through. So that has that number and that just pulls that through directly. So it knows that when I post something, it just automatically adds my name into that reference field. It doesn't work with doing the names and things like that, so it gets very messy if you try and do reference fields with Webflow, and it'll just mess it up. So then you want to update this record in Airtable because we want to add in the item ID for this post then. So once you've created that live item, you want to add this ID. So again, we go to project table in here, search using a custom value using that record ID, and then we just update it with that new item ID that we've just got from Webflow by creating that item basically in this step. Then I like to go and do this, which is, I mentioned that text item ID before. We want to have, it creates its own item ID. It's then mapped to Airtable, so it's kept in that Airtable row. But then we also want to put that back into Webflow for use in like the next stages. Really, we want to always have like that data pulled through when we're doing stuff more complicated. So everything gets sort of one more step more complicated. So having this item ID, its own item ID attached to it is a very useful thing to do. So essentially, you look it up by the item ID that you have, which is, I mean, it is there, so it pulls it in, but you can't access it through the CMS collection. So I don't know if that's explaining it well enough, but essentially, if I have, this is the challenge I created, you'll see that there's an item ID here, which gets created when you create a live item. So that's how Zapier can pull it out. But actually, we can't access it easily in any HTML embeds or anything like that, unless we have it as a field itself. So we're using that last step to basically populate this again with the same number that is here, which will hopefully be a bit more relevant in the next sort of step. So that updates that live item, and then we just have a private channel message that says, so-and-so has just posted a new project. And that's sort of the posting mechanism of posting things, creating new items in the site and saying that belongs to this person. So that should be a fairly useful piece anyway, because you can look at that for different things, creating listings and job board, like job posts or things like that. So the next one, another advanced, like a more advanced thing is, you may have seen, if I, so we have our companies, we'll use choose -- as the example. So there's a few fields here, but actually if you look at -- here you'll see there's a few things. Add this tool to my profile, get started now, takes you to their site. You can see users, if they have any. This is all new because they were literally put on a couple of days ago. Yeah, this is, you'll see there's why do you love it? It's like leave a review. So this is the exact same situation and same flow as add tool to my profile. So I don't know if I've got this to my profile yet. Okay, so I haven't got it on there yet. So if I live demo this, see if this works, add tool to my profile, that should happen. And then on here, ooh, not yet. Okay, so now it comes through -- it's now on my profile. So you can see how that could be useful in that if I go and recommend a user, then I'll become like listed almost straight away, not quite straight away, but I got bad internet. So you get listed, then if you want to leave a review on a company, that gets like automatically added to your profile and things like that. And we can talk about how it actually shows on your profile, but that like is essentially tagged to what is your profile in Airtable, in Webflow, through Zapier. So the way we do that is, again, having a CMS collection of the tools, name, etc. And within that, we've got the okay, no, sorry, this is the other way around. So we've got the collection item for the tools that we use, but in our user settings, this is what I was showing, we've got companies as a multi-reference. So that connects to that collection, just so we can show there's going to be more than one tool. So let's see how we can pull in all of those at once. And this is where things get tricky and a bit more technical. But as we can see, it is possible. So if I show you my thing, you'll see that there's actually several multi-reference items for companies. We can see it for tutorials, for different types, for different things on my list, different people who have recommended me. So you can see that how this could be used for multiple different ways to do multiple different things. So we've got a multi-reference here. And then on this tools page, there's two because it's like it shows one to people logged in and one to not. So yeah, this button is basically, it's a form block again. You'll see this is a form block. We've just got a button in here and then the HTML embed. So that has the email input that we know about. We've got the user's full name, just because I thought I'd pull it in anyway. We've also got, because this is a CMS page of this company, we can pull in fields here that is from our CMS collection. So actually you can have the input name, input type hidden, value, this tool's name, for example, and then you name it something like tool name. And then like we've done previously, we've got the text item ID. So we've called that the tool item ID. So that makes it easier to pull in. Okay, I know that -- is like a series of numbers and letters, but that's that item in Webflow. So I can then reference that on my profile and pull that through. So then we do that in this way. So in this form submission, again, this is the tool one. You then go through and do what you should know now, I guess, which is look at that profile, look at this profile, find out who that person is by the email that got pulled through as a hidden item, and then just find that person. Then you want to create a new record in Airtable, and this is our tools table. So this one is a new one that we haven't seen yet. So this has like username, user email, and we don't actually need these, I don't think. We've got the reference, we've got the tool name, the tool item ID. So like I told you about, that's why we have the text item ID, so we can pull this through here. So when we go through, we pull through that the user's name, the user's email, they're the hidden fields. The reference, again, you use that from finding the record in Airtable, so that gets pulled in. The tool name, pull that in, and then the tool item ID pulls in that text item ID. But what you need here is the quotation marks before and after that CMS ID, because otherwise that's not going to roll up into what we need very soon. So once you've created that record here, you'll see this has the quotation marks already in there, because it gets pulled through this way. Then you want to find that find your record again. So you want to find your email again, find the sort of that line item in your Makerpad profiles, because when you found it the first time, there was no separate record that had a relationship to it. So there was your profile, but it wasn't that tool item pulled in and then linked to your profile. So that's why it can't find it unless you find this again. So when you find it again, it's basically saying, okay, I found this, and then you've created this item, which has this reference. And then, okay, now let me refresh, basically, and go and find it here. So what you need to do here then is, let me just find the right one, is you have this is your reference, like what you've created in tools used with that reference, that's referenced here. And if you have allow linking to multiple records, you'll be able to see that it will have like a bunch of these, and it just says my name because that's what we have as the first field here. But that's basically all of these items are all rolled up into that one cell. So then what you want to do is have a roll-up field. So you look at the tools, this field, you want to roll up the tool item ID. So from it pulls in, it looks at that reference. Then you want to have all of these item IDs, and you essentially want to put them all together. So if you do array unique values, I'll put that in the chat as well, just for. There's another one which is array join, which I was doing for a while, but then it stops you being able to have. It basically it makes you have non-unique ones. But this one is just so you just have unique ones. Even if I press -- twice, it should only ever show it once. So this then basically rolls up all of those item IDs into one long text. So it'll look like that essentially. Chris asked, how do you display all the tools used on an individual's profile? Yeah, we'll get to that after we've done this. So the tools roll up, does all this. So essentially then it's saying, right, all of these tool item IDs belong to this person, this record. So that's why you find the record again, and you have those fields. You need this field in Airtable with quotation marks. And then you've got to do a custom request. So this is where it gets on the border of no code. So you need to find the Webflow API collections list. You'll be able to find this yourself. I mean, you just put in api.webflow.com/collections. This string of what looks like an item ID is actually the ID here. It's not this one, it's the one for my users collection, essentially. So we want to post something to those users. So I'm saying, hey, Webflow, on this collection, make sure the method is patch. On this user collection, look up the item, and then pull in my Webflow ID for my person. So saying, look up in the user collection is look up Ben. And then this data section is look the field I want to update. This is like the field I want to update is called companies. So as we saw before, it should be. So it's called companies. You can see there it's called companies. So yeah, look at this and go to companies, and then in square brackets, you pull in that roll-up field. So you can see once you've found the record again here, you'll have this updated roll-up field, which we just talked about, which is all of these numbers. And then you've got to put your authentication in, which you've got to do authorization. You've got to get a bearer token. These are other things you need to look up Webflow for with your number. You've got to have accept version, content type. You've got to have all these things, which are things you wouldn't necessarily know, but you've got to look them up on Webflow, or you can ping them in the Makerpad Slack and stuff. So then once you've got those things, that's basically it. That's sent all of those item IDs to that collection, and it's basically live. It works. But we've got another thing here, so now I'm going a bit off piece and a bit like more advanced stuff. So if you've seen on our profiles, we have this number here which says 24. Sort of shows fans there's 4. So you might have seen when I did the roll up, this is just account type, which pulls in the number of like records in the tools essentially, which is just a sneaky way to then we've got a field in which just pulls in the count type, so we can show those things. But that's just like an extra thing that you don't need to do. And then we have a private channel message that says so and so has added Zapier to their tool stack. So that's how you do multi-reference fields with those, and you can see that actually on Makerpad we do a bunch of these things. So where you have a submit a review, again that's a form which you pull in like the tool name, tool item ID. You have the hidden fields, email, full name come through, and then that's another table on Airtable that shows you those things. And then we have another roll up that happens. So it's all linked in the same way, and that's how you basically can replicate those types of features. And then Chris asked about how I don't know which one it is. How we basically show the different things on individuals' profiles. So this, for example, is a collection ID, a collection list. So it's in the CMS page, but you can add a new collection list wrapper here. And then this is the company's source. So we're looking at the companies. And there should be a filter on this. So I'm just trying to. Right, let me have a look at tools used. So this is looking at the company's collection list. So I'm just trying to see. So I almost can't remember. So yeah, I can't, for some reason, I can't figure out what is happening on that tools one. I'm sure it's, the thing is, because it's on this user, it automatically pulls in like what is related to them, and this is basically a collection list within, like this is the reference field within my profile, within my user collection. So if we try and do, we'll just try and like set up another one, for example. So if we go to, if we just did like another collection list. So yeah, this is why, sorry. Looked like I didn't know what I was doing then. So when you pull in a collection list within a CMS collection page, it'll show you, okay, here are all the collections you have, but actually here are the reference collections that you have in your CMS in that item. So like we talked about, we've got the companies, which is the tools one we went through. So when you click that, it's only going to show those things. It's only going to show the ones that are in your reference collection. So that's how like each of those specific things are shown in these specific tabs. And yeah, it's the same for tools. That's just companies, and it's only going to show the ones that I'm connected to. Let's just have a look. Any other questions from anyone else on? That's basically how you set up a membership site, and like any of the things you see, they're all done in the same way, and it just might be a different way of connecting those pieces. But it's essentially all about form submissions, through like pulling things through Zapier, looking them up and matching them on Airtable, and then passing them back through to the site. And that's how a lot of this stuff is done. Jacob said, will you be going through all of the details of the webhook, such as creating the URL and a bearer token? No, I won't, because they're all different. But essentially, I'll copy paste. The URL is going to be unique to everyone. I'll put this in the chat just so everyone can sort of see it. This will be sorry, I can't type and I'm looking at the. So that will be the URL that you'd want to use. That's obviously not a URL, but it's the Webflow collection ID, and then the Webflow item ID. So yeah, I'll send that too. So when if you want to find out yours, if you look at your, it'll say here your page ID, and that is your collection ID. When you're on the right collection, the users template will be that, and then this is the Webflow item ID. But again, you'd want to do that with pulling in the collection ID will always be the same, but you want to pull in the right. You want to pull in this from previous steps. This will be the data field. Will be this. Just copying this across. Will be Airtable rollup field. Your field. So that's the data bit, and then the other stuff you've got to get from Webflow, because it's your own bearer token and everything else. yeah, essentially, that's how you do it. That's how you create a membership site and pull those things through back and forth. And if there's any more questions, let me know now. If not, we can shut it down. All right, no more questions. I'll let you all go. Thanks for tuning in.